Hey traders, Raghee here, and in this recap video we're going to cover a number of markets that we've had our eye on for not just the last 2 days, for about the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to give you some insight into levels that I'm watching across multiple markets and the direction that I'm going to continue to be trading in. One concept that's really a staple in our room, in the Simpler Futures trading room as well as the site, is this idea of a certain bias. Now, there are directional biases. It's like a river. We know there's a certain way it flows, and if you're trying to deal with a river, you know that going upstream is something you can only do for a short amount of time. So we tend to want to recognize, one, is the river flowing, and two, which way is it going? And those are the focus for our trades. And, you know, this is going to take us back to about 2 weeks. In fact, this was what's known as a trade of the week for Simpler Trading. And this was a trade that was very much built on the 8 EMA, what we call propulsion dots. Think of propulsion dots as a self-correcting and accelerating pedal for the market. So it's a self-correcting moving average, exponential moving average, actually. And unlike most moving averages, and there are a few on this chart, as you can see, all three of these are moving averages, but this turns on and off, as you can see. And the reason it turns on and off is moving averages really shouldn't be used all the time. They should ideally be used in trending markets. So these propulsion dots sort of are self-correcting, and they show when the market's starting to show, indicate some acceleration. Which direction? That's where we use the color of the grab candles. All this green, 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 green tells me the overall direction is up, and then the market's foot is on the accelerator pedal by the time we get 5 dots. So this was a buy that we took both on Apple and Facebook. Now I bring these up in a futures conversation because we're long both of these markets. And if I'm long Apple and Facebook as a futures trader, it's very difficult to want to even think about betting against the Nasdaq. And that's very important. You don't want to bet against the Nasdaq when heavily weighted names are moving upward with propulsion. Let me show you what I mean. This is a typical layout of how I view an individual futures index contract. I kind of view this as an exploded view, or if you were to open up the Nasdaq, what would you find inside of it? This is what's known as the weighting. So inside the Nasdaq, and in the order that I've listed, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and so forth, this is the weighting. So Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft in there too. These are heavily weighted names. Where these go, the Nasdaq is going to go. So when I understand the synergy between certain stocks, not all of them, not all 100 names, actually more than 100, but all not 100 names are going to have equal weighting. In fact, psychologically, I think names like Nvidia and Netflix and Booking, formerly known as Priceline, are very important, but they're very low weighted names as compared to Apple or Amazon, Microsoft, or Facebook. There's just really no comparison to percentage weighting that a name like Apple has compared to, say, Booking. But they're all important. Apple more so when you're trying to determine what the overall direction of the Nasdaq is. So we'll use a breakdown like this in the room. I use some other breakdowns as well. Yesterday in the recap video, I talked about the way in which I use ETFs to represent certain sectors. Well, there you see the way I can look at individual stocks within that index. And I'll do the same thing with ETFs. For example, it's fairly important to know where names like the consumer discretionaries are going. So here's the XLY. This would be key to understanding what's happening within the Nasdaq as well. Second most heavily weighted sector. And then again, there are a number of stocks in play. So this is where a lot of our focus has been. How do we pick the directional bias? Now, I mentioned I'd give you another clue as to directions that I'm looking at. Another thing I'm focusing on is the dollar's strength, so the US dollar strength, as it's applying to the Russell. I don't look at the Russell a lot, but when you look back historically at a strong dollar environment, now throw in the issues of the geopolitics, the trade wars, which is really more like a trade arm Russell, and the strong dollar, the Russell does a very good job, as we can see, outperforming in this environment. So I've been looking at small cap energy, and also the Russell, not only for day trades to the long side, but also for some of my longer term holdings. So you might say, well, it sounds like being a futures index trader is a lot like being a stock trader, and vice versa. Absolutely. This is how you open up the market and create a lot of opportunity in the synergy that we find, especially when you're looking at ES and QYM or the RTY. So I hope this gives you another layer of insight into how we set some trades up. We had a bullish bias going into today specifically, mostly in the Nasdaq and the Russell. That should come as no surprise now. But our main play was energies. And in the premium video, I'm going to dive into those energy plays in RBOB gasoline, crude oil, as well as even heating oil, and talk about how we're going to play those going forward, because those were big moves today, big winners for us. More on that in the next video. Hey, and I also wanted to mention, because from time to time I will do some free events, and one of them that I'm doing tomorrow is for investor inspiration. So this is an event that's going to start at 11 a.m. Eastern, and I'm going to be going from 11 to, I believe, 11:45. And the cool thing about this event is that it's going to be a live Q&A webinar, and in terms of where I feel the markets are going, where I think opportunities are waiting, and specifically how I'm setting them up, as well as links to some very cool free tools that I use, and even some free checklists that I'm going to make available in this event that I typically don't make available anywhere else but in the membership. I'm going to be giving you guys links to some of this stuff. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern, investorinspiration.com. Go ahead and register. It's absolutely free, 45 minutes. It's going to be a game changer. This is going to be happening tomorrow. Gosh, 16 and a half hours from today. Looking forward to seeing you there.